What's up, everybody? This is Brandon Jamal Baker. Welcome back to my YouTube channel, Where I Belong with Brandon J. Baker, author of the book Where I Belong, available on Amazon. Um, in the last video, I mentioned just a little bit about perseverance, and I thought it was very, imperative that I speak about this topic because I think that it's really the key or the foundation for anyone who is successful in life. Um, because we all go through struggles and trials and tribulations, and for anyone who is out there struggling or is going through some kind of turmoil, I want you to know is that like you're not alone. Um, and even if there's nobody in your circle that's going through it with you right now, currently at the time, all one has to do is just look back throughout history and see so many examples of people who have overcome, trials and tribulations. And it's not just, way back, centuries ago in history. We could just look at modern day history. Look at myself as an example. But I don't want to use this opportunity to talk about myself, but rather give an analysis of someone who really inspired me. I talk a lot about um, Viktor E. Frankl in his book, Man's Search for Meaning. If I ever did a Mount Rushmore of books, that book would definitely make the top four. Um, but there was one thing in that book that really stood out to me. He has a quote in there, and he says, "If a man has a why to live, he can overcome anyhow." And I'll just let that sit for a little bit. Hopefully, it resonates with you how it resonated with me. I'm going to repeat it. If a man has a why to live, he can overcome anyhow. Hmm. And so I just remember reading that book, and this was a man who survived the Holocaust. He was in concentration camps, just witnessing, murders. I mean, it was horrible, where a lot of people didn't make it out, and on top of that, he was separated from his wife, who was his North Star, if you will. Um, and he just talked about like it was the love that he had for his wife that got him through. That when he was just going through the worst of the worst, he would just think about her. And he even describes in the book like looking up into the sky and seeing the moon and just imagining that his wife was looking at that same moon. um, but I said that to say is that we all have to have a why. I think that that's one of the key components to us being here on this earth is to figure out why. Like, why are we here? I know that was a question that I asked myself several times. I spoke about my struggles with suicide, depression, um, and the reason why I wanted to take my life or attempted to take my life. Um, it was really because I didn't understand why I was here. But once I figured out why I was here, it gave me purpose. It gave me significance. It gave me a will and determination to accomplish my destination, to get to that end goal and to hear, well done, when it's all said and done, which I know is still not the end of it, because there's definitely more on the other side, in my opinion. And, we'll definitely unpack that some other time. But I want to stay on track with the perseverance and show how I applied that to my life. I also talked about in the last video about me being very intentional with how I spent the rest of my time, throughout my incarceration after the conversation I had with Curtis Daniel. Um, it wasn't easy. There was a lot of decisions that I had to make. I talked about having to sacrifice using cell phones, staying away from cell phones, staying away from all kind of criminal or illegal activity that would keep me in prison. Um, and I clearly had a cell phone addiction. I talk about being found in possession of 17 cell phones. 17 cell phone write-ups. They call them 115s in California prison. 6 times there were multiple phones, so clearly there was an addiction. And I know the first time I went to parole board in 2019, I received a 5-year denial because of those cell phone write-ups. So I had to make a decision to leave them alone because my why was my freedom. I wanted to get out of prison, but I didn't want to just get out of prison just for like me. I wanted to get out of prison because I knew that my freedom would be able to reach and teach and impact countless people. Just the fact that I have a YouTube channel right here is like it's incredible to me. It's unbelievable because in prison it was like my voice was muzzled. Um, and I think that's like the hardest thing to deal with, throughout incarceration. Um, just feeling like you are the downtrodden and the outcast. To me, I really believe that incarcerated individuals, both men and women of all ages, are the most marginalized group. And the reason why I have that opinion is because no matter what issue it is, it's in your face. Like we can talk about poverty. Well, you don't have to look far to see people who are experiencing poverty. We can talk about homelessness. You don't have to look too far to see people that are homeless. It's everywhere. All throughout this country. We could talk about violence. We could talk about inequality, racism, all these things that are hot button topics, and they're right in your face. But when it comes to incarceration, it's like out of sight, out of mind. And you have people that are in there who really don't have a voice. Um, and that's really where my writing came from, which was another thing that helped me be able to get through. So that perseverance was, I had tunnel vision. If any of you have ever drove through a tunnel, um, you'll know what it's like. As soon as you enter the tunnel, it's just darkness. You can't even see the light. It's darkness. But the further you go, eventually you're going to see that light. And once you see that light, you're not looking to the left or to the right anymore. You're just trying to get to that light. And that's what perseverance is. So whoever it is out there who's watching this, just know that you're going to go through some ups and downs. You're going to have to sacrifice. Um, there is no winning without discipline. Like you can't win without discipline, and you won't have a better life without sacrifice. Nothing ever comes easy. But when you receive, you know, your goal, you're going to appreciate it so much more. And also, I'm never shy about my faith. Um, and it's not lost on me, in the scripture, Jesus talks about the life and life more abundantly. And for me, I just always took that to mean is that like God wants to bless us, but he wants us to appreciate those blessings. He wants us to cherish those blessings. And, I always say is that, you know, the worst thing that you can experience is being born with a silver spoon in your mouth, because you never know what it's like to go without. And if you ever had to go without something, the minute you receive it, you're going to appreciate it a whole lot more. So whether you're in a relationship, if you had several failed relationships and you meet that man or woman who loves you properly and is everything that you've ever hoped for, imagined, or dreamed of, you're going to cherish it a whole lot more. Or, if there was a certain promotion in a job that you wanted and you saw other people getting it and it just wasn't your time yet, but you never gave up. You kept your focus on, my time is going to come. I'm going to get that promotion. I'm going to get that pay raise. And guess what? When you got it, you're going to appreciate it a whole lot more, as opposed to something just being handed to you. And that is what perseverance looks like. That determination to get through. And going back to the quote, if a man has a why to live, he can overcome anyhow. Like it doesn't matter what situation you're up against. If you know why you're doing it, you're going to get through it. You're going to get to it. One of my favorite rappers is Nipsey Hussle, the late great Nipsey Hussle, the legend himself. And in one of his songs, he talks about, you can have it all. It's all about your reasons. And so we just have to set our intentions and make sure that they're aligned with what is good. Like, yeah, you want to be rich? Okay, but why? You know, just think about why we're doing these things. And once you have that why, the end goal should be to help someone else, um, to change the world, to change, your family, your community, just to bring about change. And at the end of the day, I believe that that's what we're all put here on this earth to do. And so I'm just doing my part in striving to bring about that change in the world. Um, so hopefully, you guys, receive something from this message right here about perseverance. Hopefully you all are inspired to continue to press forward. Maybe you're not seeing the results that you want to see, but um, anything that is good is worth waiting for. If this is a dream that you have in your mind, in your heart, then it's definitely worth fighting for. And going back to the analogy of being in that tunnel, you have a decision. Like if you see light at the end of the tunnel, that means it's coming to an end. And so, are we gonna have enough patience to get through to the other side? Or are we just gonna stay right there in that tunnel and wait for the light to come to us? Or God forbid we turn back around and just throw everything away, all the progress that we've already had. So I just said that to say once again, um, whoever you are out there, if there's one person watching this, one viewer who's watching this, who is just feeling like, I don't know, man, I'm in transition. I quit this job and I was expecting this other job to come through and it didn't, or I was going to start my own business and it hasn't really worked out for me. Um, Wherever you are, I just left this relationship and I'm tired of being single. Um, I would just tell you that, perseverance, you'll get through it. You'll get through it. And that's like the power of manifestation. You believe it in your mind, you speak it. You speak it, you live it. And guess what? Doors is going to open up for you, that you couldn't even imagine. There's no obstacle that's going to come your way that you can't overcome. And I will leave you with this. When people ask me, how was I able to get through dark times or hard times? And I always say is that no matter how hard things were in my life, the worst situation I ever could have faced, guess what? I got through it. I got through it. And so sometimes it's imperative for us to look back because that's going to let us know where we're going in the future. So whenever I go across a hard situation, I know in my heart that I'm going to get through it because I've got through worse. And that's the same thing for you. Like I said, I'm no different than any of you out there. You went through some hard times too, but guess what? You're right here, right now, today, for a reason, for a purpose, and that purpose is going to lead you to your destiny. So once again, man, hopefully, you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, I would just ask if you could, like, share, comment, subscribe to the channel. And it's really just a matter of, you being a part of this process because, one thing about me, I'm just going to be vulnerable and transparent. I want you to know me and I'll hope, that I will have a chance to get to know you as well. So, you interact in the comments, guess what? I'm going to interact right there with you. You can look me up on Instagram, b.successful81. I'm very approachable, very social, but more importantly is that, I care, and I just like to believe that there are still people in this world who actually care. So once again, just thank you for your time, and I look forward, to seeing you guys on the next video. Peace, love, and blessings to all of you out there.